This morning in Japan, President Trump delivered remarks to 6,000 troops aboard the USS George Washington. In what sounded more like a campaign speech, President Trump touted his political achievements, condemned Democrats in Washington, and criticized the media. But he also delivered this message on future U.S. military operations.
We will not be politically correct. You don't mind that, do you? When it comes to defending the United States, we're no longer politically correct. We're going to defend our country any way we have to, and that's usually not the politically correct way. From now on, if we're in a war, we're going to win the war. We're going to win it like nobody ever before. You know, we'd go in, we'd blast the hell out of countries. Shouldn't have gone in. By the way, if you don't go in, that's even better. We don't have to go in, peace through strength. But, you know, we'd go in, we'd win, and then we'd leave. They used to say, to the victor belong the spoils. Well, we'd be the victor that would leave because we had people that didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Hello, Bobby Jones here for Valor Media and MeidasTouch Networks. The clip you just saw was President Trump on his trip abroad throughout most of Asia. He stopped at Yokosuka Naval Station, a place that I know very well. I was stationed there for quite a while, spent almost half my career in that area of the world. He addressed sailors on the USS George Washington, the aircraft carrier that is home ported there. And despite the cheers that young, exuberant sailors gave on cue when the president basically paused to do it, once again, we saw something that's part of a reoccurring theme. It's a reoccurring theme, but it fits into a bigger picture. Let me explain. President Trump's first term was pretty exciting as far as challenging constitutional norms. But the people he had to fight most in those battles were his own cabinet, specifically former General Mattis, who was the Secretary of Defense, his Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, and various Secretaries of Defense post-Mattis. As a matter of fact, a lot of the things that we found out after he left office were quite disturbing, is what he wanted specifically the military to do both abroad and domestically. To counter that, he made sure that he got people who were not competent, but who would be good lackeys. Enter Pete Hegseth, enter Mark Rubio, enter a variety of personalities and characters who are ill-equipped to be in the job that they are in. That being said, there's something that's very obvious that's going on with the Department of Defense specifically. You have this dual line of operation, one that deals with information and one that deals with propaganda, in shaping today's American military into a more loyal to Donald Trump force. At least that's what the effort is. So let's start with information first. Since President Trump's return to the White House, we have seen a concentrated effort to deny and control information regarding America's military. Now, granted, every commander-in-chief has done that to some degree over the course of their presidency, but what we're seeing right now is unprecedented. Right now, there is no press corps at the Pentagon, at the headquarters of the United States military. Why? Because Pete Hegseth gave them an ultimatum saying either you go through us for all the stories that you have, or you won't have press credentials. And pretty much every press organization, with the exception of One American News, said no deal, and stormed out. And what's interesting, even since that has happened, we've had many people still leak to the press. So it really didn't control anything. But if that wasn't enough, Hegseth started giving NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, to people who already have security clearances, to include those at the Pentagon and to also include those who are actually operational downrange, who he feels like may be able to talk to the press. Again, unprecedented. Wasn't done in World War II, wasn't done in any war that America has had. But this paranoia that Hegseth has to control information is unprecedented for anybody sitting in that position. It's almost as if he feels like people are out to get him, probably because he feels like in the back of his mind, he knows he's incompetent. And despite all of these informational things that he's trying to do to control the information flow out of his department, this man has had himself and many other people that work in the Pentagon and the Department of Defense found out for Signalgate, passing notes and passing classified information on unsecure lines, and not a damn thing has really happened to anybody, to include Hegseth. So the hypocrisy with the accountability is staggering, but information is power. And so Hegseth, whether right or wrong, believes if he can control information and intimidate people into not saying stuff, even when he knows he may be doing something wrong, he thinks that's okay. And when you add in the operations that the United States Navy and other military forces have done against Venezuela and now in the Pacific, many more people are asking for questions and answers. Hegseth won't give it to him. As a matter of fact, he has now put out an order saying if you talk to anybody in Congress, you have to go through Hegseth first. So Congress, whose position is oversight, to include the United States military, he believes is not allowed to ask anybody in uniform what the hell is going on. That is alarming. So information's one piece. Now let's move to the propaganda, and that is where President Trump has really come into play. President Trump has spoken, I want to say 7, maybe 8 times to military audiences since he's come back into the White House. And every time he's done it, he has tried his best to make it seem like a actual campaign rally. Now, for those who may or may not know, in America, the military is not used as a political prop, or at least it should not be. The military works very hard to be nonpartisan because guess what? Over the course of your career, you will have presidents that are from both political parties, and it doesn't matter. You're supposed to still carry out the mission. Not good enough for President Trump. President Trump has gone in front of military audiences in various places: Memorial Day, Army's 250th birthday, Navy's 250th birthday, and not only said very partisan things, blasting Democrats in front of, military members, but have blasted previous commanders in chiefs, previous presidents, saying that they were morons or stupid or idiots, et cetera, just like he did in Yokosuka this past week. Now, if this was a campaign rally, it's still bad form, but guess what? It would be acceptable, especially for him. But you do not do that to a military force who may be, taking orders 3.5 years from now from someone from the other political party. That is not how we do business. The United States military does not pledge allegiance or loyalty to one person. When you think about that speech that he gave in Yokosuka, the speech that he gave in Quantico to the flag officers, the generals and admirals of the United States military, you really see he's approaching this top to bottom, as far as trying to get the military to seem as though they are his military and not the American people's. Add to the fact that, a donor, no longer anonymous, a donor gave $130 million to help the military meet payroll during the government shutdown, and other various things that are happening with the private sector gaining more influence with America's military. And you have something that should concern not just Americans, but the rest of the West as far as American allies. And as unhinged as these actions by Trump and Hegseth have been, what the Department of Homeland Security and Kristi Noem are doing to, strike fear in the hearts of people in America, or to appeal to an America that never really actually existed, should give one to pause. Take a look at these recruiting posters for the Department of Homeland Security and ICE. If you look at them, they have a very, what we call Norman Rockwell style look to them. But all of these posters are pretty homogenous. All of them look like something that you see in, fascist countries, things that the world has seen, like in 1930s Germany or 1950s Soviet Union. It has that same flair to it. This propaganda piece is trying to recruit new personnel into ICE, new personnel into federal government service. So when you look and see what's happening, propaganda at all levels, information denial and control at all levels, and this is being pushed down America's throat as the new normal. Why does all this matter? Well, it matters because you're trying to create a force that is politically biased. You're trying to create a force that is not really based on just merit and really the Constitution, but on your personal whims and your personal likes. And we've already seen this in the federal government with the weaponization of the Department of Justice going after political enemies of President Trump, specifically and explicitly. Now he's trying to get the actual military to change its ways and back those type of behaviors. The fact that we have all of these strikes happening in the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean without 1 ounce of evidence being presented should actually terrify Americans. Couple that with money being taken from one pot, moved to another because there's a government shutdown to keep certain people paid while 2 million people are out of work, while SNAP is about to go out and 41 million people who need that to survive and eat. It's not a priority. It's not a priority. And those who voted for him and, said they voted for certain things but didn't vote for this, well, these changes are starting to affect everybody. Everybody. And Congress, the House of Representatives, is not even in session. Why? Because they're trying to avoid a vote on the Epstein files. The American military has done a pretty good job of being resistant to some of these changes. Those who've been in for decades understand what the oath to the Constitution means, and it means not an oath to a person. But if the United States Congress and other American leaders do not step up to the plate and try to put an end to all of these unprecedented things, the America that most of us knew growing up, the America that most of the world knows, will never be seen again.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.